The email popped up at 10:07 p.m. on a Sunday night. Subject: no excuses. I want the proposal in my inbox before 7 a.m. I stared at the glowing screen in disbelief. It wasn't the first time Jade Myers, my new manager at Vexton Systems, had blindsided me with a last-minute demand, but this time it felt personal. It had been barely 3 weeks since I started the job, and Jade had already made it her mission to test every boundary I had. The job wasn't glamorous. After losing my previous marketing role due to a company downsizing, I took the first stable offer I could find. My husband and I had just recovered from a tough year: 2 layoffs, a flooded basement, and my father's illness. Vexton felt like a lifeline. The role was technically a demotion, but the paycheck was steady, and I was desperate to rebuild. Jade was the director of product communications, and I was hired as a project coordinator, a role designed to support both the product and marketing teams. My onboarding manager, Curtis, had been warm and encouraging. The first few days felt like a fresh start. My coworkers welcomed me. The office vibe was busy but energetic. And then Jade returned from vacation. She didn't introduce herself during our first meeting, just walked in late, clicked through my slides with a raised eyebrow, and ended the call without a goodbye. After that, it was a constant barrage of passive-aggressive comments and impossible tasks. "I hope you're not one of those 9-to-5 types," she'd say with a tight smile. "We hustle here." Or, "You're surprisingly well-spoken for someone who didn't come from a top-tier school." It wasn't the work that bothered me. I could handle pressure. It was the way she made me feel invisible one minute, then under a microscope the next. If I succeeded, she took credit. If anything slipped, she made sure everyone knew it was my fault. I told myself to hang in there. We needed the income. The mortgage didn't care about my dignity. But by the end of week 3, I was at my breaking point. It was a Friday afternoon. I had just wrapped up a presentation for the marketing leadership team and sent out follow-up notes when Jade marched over to my desk. "You forgot to CC one of my interns," she snapped loud enough for half the floor to hear. "Do you even understand how communication works, or do you just enjoy making me look bad?" I froze. I could feel every eye in the room shift toward me. My face burned with humiliation. That was it. I stood up, walked directly into Curtis's office, and closed the door behind me. "I can't do this anymore," I said, my voice steady despite the storm inside. He looked at me for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "You're not the first to say that." "What do you mean?" "She's burned through 5 employees in less than 8 months, he admitted. But no one documented anything formally. HR says they can't act without a pattern. I stared at him, stunned. "So she just gets to keep doing this?" "Only if people stay silent," he said carefully. That evening, Curtis pulled some strings and reassigned me to his team, placing me in a more strategic role under his supervision. I no longer reported to Jade directly. For the first time in weeks, I exhaled, but relief didn't last long. The following Monday, a familiar name popped up in my inbox. Subject: urgent, pending deliverables. It was from Jade. A list of tasks, bullet points, no greeting, no acknowledgement that I was no longer on her team. I ignored it. 2 days later, she appeared at my desk, again in front of everyone. "So this is how you operate," she said, her voice laced with venom. "Play the victim and then pretend you're too good to respond?" Before I could speak, Curtis stepped in behind her. "That's enough, Jade," he said quietly. Her jaw tightened. She turned and walked away without another word. But she didn't stop. Emails kept coming, thinly veiled attempts to regain control. She tried CCing directors, subtly questioning my unprofessionalism. She even approached one of my teammates, asking if I was coping well after the department change. It was clear she was trying to bait me. I didn't take it. Instead, I started writing. Not a resignation letter. A record. Every comment, every after-hours message, every time-stamped insult. I opened a folder titled Receipts and began compiling evidence. 3 weeks later, I hit send. Not just to Curtis, but to HR, to the senior VP of product, even to Jade's own boss. The email was short and professional. I attached a second file, 3 pages long, with dates, quotes, and documented harassment. It ended with a single sentence. "I'm not asking for compensation or retribution, only for accountability." The response was immediate. HR reached out requesting a formal interview. Curtis thanked me for having the courage to speak up. But what I didn't tell them was that, I wasn't finished. Because Jade thought I was just another pushover. Another name on a list of people she had handled. What she didn't know was that I wasn't just leaving behind her toxic leadership. I was walking straight towards something better. And she would never see it coming. The first Monday morning after I quit Jade's team, I sat at our small kitchen table in my robe, fingers curled around a mug of coffee that had gone cold. No late-night pings, no 10 p.m. urgent emails, no manipulative messages disguised as feedback. And yet, the silence was unsettling. For the first time in months, I was free. But freedom without a paycheck is like breathing underwater, momentary, terrifying, and filled with panic if you can't surface fast enough. My husband's new job was steady but modest. His income barely covered the essentials. Our savings were thin. Rent, groceries, insurance, it all added up and fast. Every day I filled out job applications, 5, sometimes 10. I rewrote my resume, tailored each cover letter, checked every company's reviews twice. 2 weeks passed. Nothing. I was beginning to doubt myself again. Then, on a Thursday afternoon, a notification from LinkedIn popped up on my screen. Avery Blake has started a new position at Vexton Systems, Vice President of Strategic Growth. Avery? My breath caught. He had been my mentor at my very first job back when I was fresh out of college. He'd been the one to push me onto my first big campaign, the one that earned me a fast-track promotion. We hadn't spoken in years, but we had stayed loosely connected online. Happy birthday comments, the occasional congrats on milestones. Without giving myself time to hesitate, I typed, "Congrats, Avery. I just left Vexton recently. Wild timing. Hope it treats you better than it treated me. Let me know if you'd ever like a download on the culture." I hit send. Then I went back to the job boards. 20 minutes later, my phone buzzed. Avery Blake. Incoming call. Lisa? Wow, you have no idea how glad I am to hear from you. We talked for over 30 minutes. I told him about the reorg, about the toxicity, without naming names. I mentioned the high turnover, the buried complaints, the culture of silence. He listened carefully, occasionally muttering things like, "That explains a lot," or "I knew something was off." At the end of the call, he paused. "I was just telling HR yesterday, I need someone to help me rebuild this place from the inside. Someone who knows the company, the systems, the cracks in the walls, someone I can trust." I said nothing, unsure where he was going. "Would you consider coming back?" he asked. I blinked. "Back? To Vexton? You wouldn't report to anyone who's ever mistreated you. You'd be in my office, a director-level role, title, salary, full autonomy. You'd help me reshape the company." It felt surreal. "I need time to think," I said. "Take the weekend," he replied. "But I hope you'll say yes." The moment I hung up, my husband walked in with groceries. I told him everything. "Would you actually go back?" he asked. "If I had power this time?" I said. "Yeah, I think I would." That Sunday night, I accepted the offer. By Monday afternoon, the onboarding packet was in my inbox. The title? Director of Strategic Initiatives, reporting directly to the VP. Salary, double what I'd made before. Remote flexibility, a generous signing bonus, full access to department leadership. I was going back. But this time, I wasn't returning as the woman begging for respect. I was returning as someone who had earned it. Avery and I agreed to keep my return quiet until the next strategy town hall. It gave me time to get set up, go through the mess Jade had left behind, and start drafting a plan to clean it up. But word travels fast. And Jade? She found out the day of the announcement. The all-staff strategy meeting was packed. Avery stood confidently at the front of the room. "Before we get started, I want to introduce someone very special to our team," he said. "Someone who understands the heart of this company and is here to help rebuild it from the inside out." He gestured toward the back. "Please welcome our new Director of Strategic Initiatives, Lisa Carr." Heads turned, faces lit up with recognition. And then, I saw her. Jade. Sitting near the front, flanked by her 2 junior managers, her expression twisted instantly. Her brows knitted together. She looked around like she was trying to confirm she'd heard the name correctly. Then her gaze found mine. I smiled. Her face dropped. I didn't say a word. I didn't have to. Her panic was the only apology I'd ever need. The rest of the meeting passed in a blur. People came up afterward to say hello, offer congratulations, share relief. Some hugged me. Some looked stunned. Jade stayed in her seat. Frozen. She didn't approach me. Not that day. Not the next. But I knew her. The silence wasn't surrender, it was preparation, and I was ready. It had only been a week since my return to Vexton Systems, and the building already felt different. Colleagues I hadn't seen in months approached me with cautious smiles and whispered words of congratulations. Some didn't say anything, just nodded, eyes wide with surprise. But the one face I had yet to see up close belonged to Jade. She was keeping her distance, for now. Avery had given me full control over restructuring our interdepartmental workflow. I was tasked with identifying problem areas, fixing broken communication lines, and, without saying it directly, neutralizing the lingering toxicity. And the more I listened to department heads, junior associates, even interns, the clearer it became. Jade had been the common thread in nearly every conflict. Under Jade, we couldn't breathe without being questioned, one product lead said during a confidential chat. I used to leave meetings feeling like I'd just been through a war. Another murmured, "She sent me a message at midnight once. When I didn't respond by morning, she called me lazy in front of the whole team." I kept notes, discreetly, thoroughly. Every complaint, every red flag. Avery never told me to document anything. He didn't have to. Late that Thursday afternoon, an email landed in my inbox. The subject line, "Concern about Lisa Carr's return, confidential." It was from Jade. My stomach turned. I clicked it open. 4 long paragraphs, formal, desperate, and filled with thinly veiled accusations. She questioned my professional credibility, referenced vague interpersonal issues, and suggested that bringing back someone with a contentious exit history could undermine team morale. She copied Avery and HR. She never mentioned our history directly. Never admitted to the endless micromanagement, the humiliation in front of peers, or the endless 10 p.m. demands. She thought if she buried it in enough business lingo, no one would question it. Avery's reply was simple. "Thanks, Jade. I'm confident in Lisa's leadership. HR is fully aware of the circumstances of her departure and return." He didn't include me in his reply, but he forwarded it to me separately. No message, just a wink emoji. I didn't respond. I didn't have to. Jade had made her move, and she had just lost the first round. The following week was quieter. Tense. Jade didn't speak to me, not directly, but I saw the way she lingered outside meeting rooms I was in, how she asked mutual connections for updates. Her power was slipping, and she could feel it. Then, during a cross-functional alignment session, it happened. We were reviewing the new process for submitting project proposals when Jade cut in. "Lisa," she said, her voice sugary sweet. "I'm just curious. Have you ever led an ops team before? Because from where I'm sitting, it seems like you're struggling to understand how cross-functional timelines work." The air turned sharp. A few people shifted in their seats. One even raised their eyebrows. No one said a word. I took a breath, looked her in the eye, and smiled. "You're absolutely right, Jade. That's why I've spent the past 2 weeks interviewing your former staff. They've shared some incredibly helpful insights about how the previous structure led to bottlenecks and burnout." The color drained from her face. "I've compiled a summary for Avery and HR," I continued. "We'll be using those findings to improve psychological safety across teams." Silence. Jade blinked, then looked down at her tablet, pretending to take notes. But I saw it. I had struck a nerve. After the meeting, Avery pulled me aside. "You handled that with more grace than I would have," he said. I shrugged. "I'm not here to play chess with her. I'm here to fix what she broke." That night, I received a message from a former colleague I hadn't spoken to in months. "Hey. Word is getting around. You're back. People are thrilled. Jade said you were fired when you left. Guess that wasn't true, huh?" I stared at the message. So she'd lied. Even after I walked out with dignity and gave no reason publicly, she had spread falsehoods to protect her ego. She told people I was let go for poor performance. She painted herself as the martyr, the one who had to clean up the mess. That was the final confirmation I needed. This wasn't just about office politics anymore. It was about restoring the truth. The next morning, I started organizing the internal feedback into a formal report. Key themes, anonymized quotes, exit interviews. I included summaries of Jade's previous conduct, based solely on what others had shared voluntarily. No editorializing, just facts. By Friday, I submitted the packet to Avery and HR. That same afternoon, HR called me in. "We're initiating a formal review." The director said, "This isn't retaliation, it's pattern recognition. This is the 5th complaint tied to Jade in under a year. I nodded. We'll handle it quietly, professionally, she added. You've done your part. As I walked out of the HR suite, my phone buzzed. A message from Avery. It's starting. Just stay steady. I smiled, because I had no intention of faltering. The office felt different now. Jade's presence lingered like a faint perfume, recognizable but fading. People still spoke in hushed tones when her name came up, but the fear that once clung to every sentence was slipping away. She hadn't been suspended. Not yet. But something had changed. Her emails were shorter, her demands fewer. Her smile didn't quite reach her eyes anymore. The investigation was underway, though quietly. HR was interviewing employees, past and present. Former interns, analysts, even a few team leads had come forward with stories. Stories I had heard in passing before, but now told in full. And they weren't pretty. I kept my head down. I delivered results. Strategy alignment was moving forward, collaboration across departments had improved, and our timeline projections were finally hitting their targets. I didn't celebrate. I simply did the work and let it speak for me. But Jade wasn't finished. That Thursday, during a quarterly planning session with senior staff, she struck again. We were reviewing projections from the engineering team. I had just presented a streamlined communication framework I had developed with input from multiple leads. The room was nodding, taking notes, until Jade spoke. This is all very theoretical, she said, flipping through her printout. But I'm not seeing how any of this applies to actual product outcomes. Frankly, it feels like Lisa's trying to compensate for a lack of technical expertise. The air left the room. No one said a word. Avery's expression didn't change. He just looked at me, waiting. I smiled, calm and even. Thank you, Jade. You're right. It's not technical. Because strategy alignment isn't about writing code. It's about making sure the people who do write code aren't doing double the work because of outdated workflows and communication gaps. Jade blinked. Just once. I continued, flipping to the next slide. Which is why your team missed 2 launch targets last quarter. Not because they lacked skill, but because they weren't told that the requirements had changed. A murmur went through the room. One VP leaned forward. Avery cleared his throat. We'll follow up on that data next week. Lisa, great presentation. Let's keep moving. Jade didn't say another word. Later that afternoon, I received an email from HR. Subject, confidential. Incident report follow-up. They had received 3 new statements about Jade's conduct. One from a former analyst who had resigned 6 months ago after being pressured to work through a family emergency. Another from a junior developer who was denied a promotion after asking for mental health accommodations. The third was anonymous but detailed, with screenshots of 11 p.m. Slack messages demanding weekend revisions. They asked if I would be willing to sit in on a follow-up interview as a corroborating witness. I agreed without hesitation. But still, part of me wrestled with it. I didn't want to become the face of her downfall. I didn't want revenge to consume my new beginning. But I realized this wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about removing the rot so the tree could grow. That night, I sat on my balcony with a glass of wine, watching the city lights flicker. My husband joined me, his expression soft. You okay? He asked. I nodded. Yeah, I just didn't think it would feel like this. Like what? Like justice, I whispered. But lonely. He reached over, took my hand. You're not alone anymore, and you're doing the right thing. I wanted to believe that. The next morning, HR called. We're placing Jade on administrative leave pending further review, the director said. We're not making a public announcement, but internally, she'll be removed from active responsibilities. I didn't ask why. I already knew. That afternoon, I returned from lunch to find a pale yellow sticky note on my office door. I hope it was worth it. No name. But I didn't need one. I peeled it off slowly and threw it away. It wasn't worth it, I thought. It was necessary. At the weekly leadership sync, Avery made a brief statement. As part of our ongoing culture realignment initiative, we're making some temporary adjustments to team leadership. We ask for discretion and professionalism as we move forward. No one asked questions, but everyone understood. Jade was gone, for now. Later that day, I found myself standing in the very hallway where she once cornered me and called me a liability. Now it was quiet, peaceful. A young analyst passed me and smiled. Thanks for fixing the meeting process, she said. I actually feel heard now. I nodded, my throat tight. That means more than you know. That evening, I sat on the couch, legs tucked under me, reviewing new applicant resumes. The office culture was already shifting. People were speaking up, suggesting improvements, collaborating like never before. This wasn't just about a toxic manager anymore. This was about reclaiming a workplace that had once made people feel small. And finally, people were standing tall again. It had been a week since Jade was placed on leave. Her office stood empty now, lights off, the blinds pulled down like a silent warning. But her absence didn't erase her shadow. Whispers still followed her name like smoke trails after a fire. I wasn't surprised when David called me into his office on Tuesday morning. She sent a final email, he said, sliding his laptop toward me. To legal. To the board. And to HR. I scanned it quickly. 4 paragraphs of unhinged accusations. She claimed I had manipulated my way back into the company, weaponized relationships, and was spreading lies to destroy her. She used words like vindictive and obsessed, as though I had nothing better to do with my time than plot her downfall. She still doesn't get it, I murmured. David nodded. Nope, she really doesn't. She thinks this is about her. It was, for a while, he admitted, but now it's bigger than her. I leaned back in my chair, processing that. He was right. This wasn't just about Jade's behavior. It was about the entire system that had allowed her to thrive unchecked. About the culture that had quietly rewarded fear and silence. She says she'll sue, I said finally, tapping the screen. David's smile didn't waver. We have documentation, testimonies, a digital trail a mile long, legal's confident. And I was too. That afternoon, I received a call from Jenna, the former analyst who'd quietly quit months ago. I heard the news, she said. I don't know if you remember, but she made me cry in a meeting once, for formatting a spreadsheet wrong. I remembered. I had been there. I had said nothing. She told people you were unstable after you left, Jenna continued. Said you couldn't handle pressure, that she had to clean up your mess. I swallowed hard. Thank you for telling me. I just wanted you to know. People are finally seeing the truth, and it's because you didn't back down. I sat in silence for a moment after the call. It still startled me. The way my voice, once muted, was now echoing through the very walls that used to contain me. The next day, HR reached out. They were finalizing their internal report. They asked if I'd review a few anonymized statements to confirm the accuracy of timelines and incidents. I agreed, and when I opened the file, something inside me twisted. Dozens of accounts. Employees who had been belittled, pushed out, shamed into silence. People I had worked beside, laughed with in the cafeteria, passed in the hallways, all quietly carrying the same burden I had. One line from an engineer stood out. I used to dread logging in every morning. I thought maybe it was just me, but seeing Lisa return, seeing her hold her ground, it gave me hope. I closed the file and took a long breath. This was working. This was changing things. Friday came, and with it the company's monthly newsletter. My name was there again, this time in a spotlight section for leading the strategic alignment initiative that helped recover a $2 million product loss from last quarter. But something else caught my eye. Jade's name was gone from the leadership section entirely. No explanation, no mention. Just removed. And yet, she still wasn't done. That afternoon, legal forwarded one final message. An exit interview request. Jade had submitted herself, riddled with dramatic claims, and one final demand. She wanted her departure framed as a voluntary resignation. David's response was short and surgical. Given the investigation findings and the nature of the complaints, we cannot accommodate this request. The company will proceed with transparency. That was the end. No quiet exits, no false narratives. Just the truth, standing in the light for everyone to see. A week later, something unexpected happened. I was invited to speak at the company's Women in Leadership event. I almost said no. I didn't feel like a leader. I didn't feel brave. I still had moments when I flinched at Slack notifications, when I second-guessed my instincts, but I said yes anyway. That Friday, I stood in front of a room full of women, managers, coordinators, new hires, and told my story. Not the polished, corporate-friendly version. The real one. I was told I didn't belong in the room, that I was unqualified, that I should be grateful to be here at all. And for a while I believed it. Until I realized, your voice doesn't stop being valuable just because someone else refuses to hear it. They listened. Some nodded. A few wiped away quiet tears. But what struck me most were the smiles, the ones that said, "Oh, finally." Someone said it. Afterward, a young woman, you don't know me, she said nervously. But when you left, I almost quit. I thought if someone like you couldn't survive here, what chance did I have? I blinked, caught off guard. But you came back, she continued. And now I think I can too. Thank you. I didn't know what to say, so I just smiled and nodded and meant it. That night, I sat on the balcony again, watching the city shimmer. My husband brought me tea and kissed the top of my head. You know, he said quietly, it's like you're finally breathing air that belongs to you. I hadn't thought of it that way. But he was right. Jade may have tried to tear me down, to box me into a version of myself that served her control. But I had built something stronger, not in spite of her, but because I refused to let her win. And now I was done surviving. I was leading. 3 months had passed since Jade's contract was officially terminated. Her name had vanished from team rosters, her face removed from the org chart, and her former office had been reassigned to a new hire, an empathetic, thoughtful team lead who made it a point to listen more than she spoke. The difference was palpable. It was like someone had opened every window in the building and let the air finally flow again. The culture was healing. But me? I was still learning how to carry freedom. It's strange how quickly fear can become part of your muscle memory. I still hesitated when my phone buzzed late at night. I still over-explained in emails. I still braced myself when someone asked to chat for a minute. But those scars, they were fading. My name carried weight now, not because I demanded it, but because I earned it. That week, we kicked off a new mentorship program. I was asked to lead it. You've been through more than most, David had said. That experience matters. I said yes. I was paired with a young woman named Ava, a junior project manager only 6 months into her career. Bright, meticulous, curious, but painfully cautious. During our first meeting, she barely looked me in the eye. I don't want to mess up, she said softly. I feel like I'm just waiting for someone to figure out I don't belong here. I paused, then smiled gently. Ava, let me tell you a secret. The people who worry about belonging, they're usually the ones who care the most. And that makes them the ones we need. She blinked, then nodded, like I'd said something she hadn't realized she needed to hear. By the end of the month, Ava had presented her first independent project proposal. And nailed it. I saw something in her. The same fire I once buried under other people's doubts. Now I had the power to fan that flame, not smother it. The real surprise came on a chilly Wednesday morning in March. I was prepping for a quarterly board review when a notification popped up on my screen. Message request from Jade Walters. I stared at it for a full minute. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. I thought of ignoring it, deleting it. But I clicked. The message was short. I know I was harsh. I just didn't think it would all fall apart. You got what you wanted. Hope it was worth it. That was it. No apology, just bitterness, dressed up as regret. I didn't respond. Because here's the truth. Jade never understood. This was never about getting back at her. It was about getting back to myself. The version of me that once knew my value before someone tried to strip it away. That same day, our HR department released a company-wide memo outlining a new leadership accountability framework. Clearer reporting channels, regular anonymous surveys, leadership evaluations tied to performance and behavior. They credited my case as the catalyst. It hit me then. My quiet persistence had sparked a shift bigger than I ever imagined. And still, I wasn't done. That Friday, I stood in front of our executive team presenting a company-wide leadership workshop titled The Cost of Silence. I opened with a simple truth. Culture isn't defined by what leaders say. It's defined by what they allow. Eyes widened. Some executives shifted in their seats, but no one interrupted. I walked them through anonymous testimonials, patterns of burnout, stories of employees who left without ever speaking up because they thought it wouldn't matter. Then I ended with my own story. I didn't name Jade. I didn't need to. The point wasn't to punish her. It was to make sure no one else became her. When I finished, there was a long pause, then applause, then questions, then change. Real, tangible, overdue change. 1 year after Jade called me an unqualified idiot in front of an open office floor, I stood on a different stage. this time as a keynote speaker at a Women in Tech Leadership Summit. My session was called From Target to Trailblazer. I told my story again, but this time I framed it not as survival, but transformation. I didn't rise in spite of the people who tried to tear me down, I said. I rose because I chose not to carry their voices any longer. The audience was quiet, listening. And then came the claps, the nods, the tears. Afterward, a woman approached me, maybe mid-40s, poised but visibly shaken. "My boss is just like your old one," she whispered. "I thought I was crazy." "You're not," I told her. "And you're not alone." She smiled, but her eyes brimmed with something deeper. Hope. At home, my husband greeted me with dinner and candlelight. "Celebrating something?" I teased. He smiled. "You. Always you." I thought about where I was a year ago, crying in my car after another degrading meeting, questioning if I had any worth beyond being someone's scapegoat. Now, I was designing culture, building leaders, mentoring women who would shape the future. I wasn't just surviving, I was thriving. As I curled into bed that night, a final thought settled in. Jade once tried to define me with cruelty, but I had rewritten the narrative with truth, courage, and action. And in the end, that was the best revenge of all.